So Tecmo released Mighty Bomb Jack, which is the sequel to Bomb Jack, which no one has ever played.
In Tecmo's Mighty Bomb Jack, Jack has to get through 16 levels of the pyramid, beat the demon Beelzebut, and rescue the royal Pamara family. Something.
There's coins that you collect, and depending on the color of the coin that you collect, that lets you open certain chests or all chests, and these things give you more time.
If you reached 9 coins or 99 on your timer, you would automatically be placed in a torture room.
The torture room is a very tricky room full of a bunch of jumps, and if you don't make every jump perfectly, you lose a life. So if you make every jump perfectly, you get out of the torture room with your life. However, all your power-ups are removed, and it resets your timer back to 60 seconds.
How do you like that, player? What do you think you're doing? No. Lose.
It's a little difficult to control until you get used to the buttons, but if you push the jump button, he'll jump a little bit, or if you hold it down, he'll jump really high, like not like Mario, really high. And if you hold it, then he'll kind of float, like Princess from Super Mario Bros. Oh, we're not talking about that yet.
I think you look great. You're dapper in your hood and cape. But you can't fly, though. You just jump a lot. So I'm not sure what the cape's for.
This is about fashion.
I think it should be.
Fantasy Zone is another cute-em-up like Twinbee, but you can move in both directions. You can scroll right, you can scroll left.
Where you control a cute little spaceship named Opa Opa.
It was essentially the first mascot Sega ever had.
And these worlds are insanely bright and colorful. I think that's the appeal of Fantasy Zone. Everything is very, very trippy.
And its unique pastel color palette and side-scrolling shooting, it was a very Japanese style game.
What made Fantasy Zone a little bit more unique for the time was the freedom with which you can move around the level, similar to something like Defender.
I like it better than Defender myself. I do like Defender, but I like you know, shooting the little bases and boom.
Not only can you fly, you can also walk on the ground because your ship has legs. It's adorable.
And what about the patterns of those enemies? Oh my God.
What patterns? They're just totally random.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Just a really imaginative, clever game, and something that helped the early Master System library stand out from the early NES library.
While Nintendo always had Mario and Donkey Kong, you had Alex Kidd and Opa Opa.
Do 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 do. Sing it, Dean. Do 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 do.
No.
Do do.
Legendary Wings by Capcom had a really unique setting.
Your characters are basically mythological angels with, that fire lasers.
Angels on a mission.
Angels on a mission.
Legendary Wings is set in the distant future where an alien supercomputer named Dark helped them and then turned against them. His name is Dark. Of course he's gonna turn against you. You didn't see that coming.
Legendary Wings was a vertically scrolling shooter for part of it, and then it would transition to a side scroller with platforming kind of elements.
This is really kind of where video game developers started to get clever and creative with how they put their worlds together.
Legendary Wings would go on to be ported to the NES, and it would find greater success there. And it was just a unique game that had some elements that you never saw before.
We're no longer dealing with spaceships and race cars in everything. You know, we've got mythological creatures and things like that, and I don't know, it just made going to the arcade more exciting, you know, to see something new.
Hey kids, do you like gang violence in the street? Urban Champion.
Urban Champion is a two-player fighting game inspired by the 1984 Game & Watch title Boxing, also known as Punch-Out.
The whole goal is to make your opponent fall into an open sewer manhole. This is not good. This is not a good game. It's not a good game.
Fighting games didn't work so well on the NES. Why? Because you had limited buttons.
You only had two options. You had kind of a soft punch, and you had a stronger punch. And that stronger punch was the one that would actually knock your opponent backwards a bit.
But it's very important because you have to protect your turf in important places like the snack bar and the discount shop.
The neighbors hate trouble. They drop flower pots on you while you're fighting. Or do they? Because when you win, they throw confetti at you.
You know, if you're taking too long on a screen, I love it when the police car drives
yeah.
by and everyone just kind of puts their hands behind their back, looks around like nothing's going on.
And the fact that they keep re-releasing this and even had a 3D version of the game released is beyond me.
It's kind of a simple rock, paper, scissors type game. It's hard to say there's a lot of strategy to something like Urban Champ. You can high block and low block, you can high punch and low punch, and there's just not that much more to it.
Very basic, but definitely early predecessor to the fighting games that we all know and love today.
Hooray! Street violence! Rolling Thunder is an outstanding, excellent arcade game and one of my personal favorites.
In the game, you take control of a player named Albatross, who is essentially a secret agent whose mission is to save a captive female agent named Leela Blitz.
The main enemies in Rolling Thunder are hooded soldiers known as maskers.
And the different colors that they wore kind of marked the different types of maskers they were. Whether they were just gonna walk towards you, whether they were gonna shoot you with a pistol, throw a grenade, you know, take extra damage.
Enemies included ninjas, mutated bats, panthers, lava men.
The game was a little tough because you only had a limited amount of hits you could take and you were dead, and it was always tough to dodge the little bullets that were flying at you, or even just dodging the maskers which were coming at you from all directions.
And you have to turn and fire with precision, duck from shots, jump up and down between the two platforms at a moment's notice, and that's where the game really shines. Is just there's this just feeling of tenseness the entire time, and there's a feeling of you better get going.
You could enter doors to take cover from enemies, kind of like in elevator action, but there'd also be bullets in there and that kind of stuff. And you could also jump up and down levels.
You never get lost in the game. You always know what you're doing. The controls in this game are really what make it. It's simple, but everything is precise and responsive. Everything feels snappy.
Some of the ports for Rolling Thunder were known for being some of the worst conversions ever. Super slow, low frame rate, choppy, not good.
I was never quite as sold on the ports of it, but the arcade version is wonderful.
And now, the popular pinball games of 1986.
Ian here with the popular pinball machines of 1986. High Speed by Williams. Hit the gas and escape the cops in this Steve Ritchie classic with the first ever multi-ball holdover jackpot. Pinbot by Williams. In this beautiful Python Angelo masterpiece, help a robot gain his vision and journey to the sun. Raven by Premier Gottlieb. The first photographic translite lured players to this average table with its Lady Rambo theme. And those were the popular pinball machines of 1986, because there's more to life than video games.